Hello, everyone. I see you guys on there. Welcome, welcome. I was actually stuck on a pick my brain session with somebody. I don't do coaching and I don't do medical diagnosis or anything like that, but I do have an option on my website where someone can pick my brain, and she was having technical issues. So our session ran a little bit long, but I'm really excited to talk with you guys. So if you can hear me, see me, all of that, go ahead and pop it on into the chat. And I can see stuff on the chat now, but just want to make sure everyone can hear me, see me, all that stuff. StreamYard takes about a minute or so before it loads. So I'm really excited to talk with you guys about this topic. If you're watching the replay and you don't like it when I interact with people on the chat, then I'm just going to encourage you to go watch some of my other videos that don't involve me chatting with everyone. Okay, cool. I see everybody. Yay. Good to see you guys on there. I'm going to talk a little bit first, and then I will take some questions on this. This is a topic that awesome. I see you guys in the chat. So this is a topic that I hear about all the time in the keto space, in the carnivore space. And a lot of people are very frustrated. And I think it's not that much of like this easy topic that we can just say, oh, you're eating too much. End of story. That's why you're gaining weight, because you're eating too much. And then we just leave it at that. I think that, yes, the law of thermodynamics does apply, and that when people are gaining weight, it is because there's an energy balance issue. But I want to take it a little step further, go a little bit below the surface of that, of why is your body holding on to that extra energy? Why is that happening for people? So that's what I'm going to talk about in this. I've got my list of notes here. So if you guys have questions, hang on to them for a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit, unless you want to send me a super chat, which is always appreciated. And then I can interject and grab those questions first. And I see Vanessa was on the chat earlier, ketogenic girl. I just messaged her today on Instagram to bring her onto my channel, because her and I are so much on the same wavelength with this, talking about reverse dieting and healing the metabolism, and why we're seeing people gain weight, have trouble losing weight, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully her and I will, there she is. Hi, Vanessa. Awesome. I sent you a message on Instagram to see if you wanted to come back on my channel and talk about metabolism, because I just listened to a podcast that she put out recently within the last couple days about reverse dieting and metabolism, some really cool studies that she's been diving into. So I hope that this stuff is helpful for you guys, especially if you're trying to do carnivore, you're gaining weight, or you have gained weight. So I want to talk a little bit about metabolism first, just so we understand context. Now, metabolism is not just this one flat thing. There's a few things that are involved in metabolism. Number one is going to be your basal metabolic rate. So the amount of energy that your body burns off at rest. So if I'm just laying in bed, my body is going to burn X amount of energy per day. The second part of your metabolism is your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's like how much you're fidgeting, how much you're walking around. I have a little Oura ring to track my steps. And that's also really important. And then the thermic effect of food. So protein is actually going to allow you to burn off more than as if you were eating carbohydrate. So protein is really important as well. So awesome. And yeah, Vanessa says that metabolism healing is so important. So, and it's funny, the lady that I just spoke with, when I was doing this Pick My Brain session, the first question I asked her, because she wanted to talk with me because she was doing carnivore, and she's like, I just can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. It's driving me crazy. And I was like, let's talk about what you did before carnivore. Let's talk about the last 10 years. And you got to be really honest with yourself. I was like, did you do a lot of restriction? Did you do a lot of dieting? Did you do a lot of fasting? Let's really talk about that. And her answer was yes, yes, and yes. And so I think a lot of us get to carnivore because carnivore, let's just face it, is an extreme diet. I mean, you're taking away all the other food groups, and I think it's fabulous. And I feel great eating this way. It's great for me. It's been great for so many health issues that eating a paleo diet did not fix. I still had chronic eczema, chronic depression and anxiety. I still had IBS, IBD. I had so many problems, and I was eating, autoimmune paleo, which is supposed to be this autoimmune healing diet. So carnivore is extreme, but for me, it's been amazing. But I had this long history of restriction. And so what I had really done without realizing it was I had downregulated my metabolism. And part of the downregulation is that you restrict, you do a lot of, fasting. I know is really popular right now, and this is something that Vanessa was saying on the podcast I listened to this morning, there are some great benefits of fasting. I don't hate on people who fast. If you do it, it works for you. Awesome. But what does happen is that you are taking your caloric intake down to zero, and our bodies are extremely smart. So our bodies will say, okay, we're having zero come in, we're going to adjust. And if you continue to do that over and over again, you're going to see your basal metabolic rate go down because you're going to lose lean body mass. You're going to lose muscle, and you want to preserve as much muscle as you can, because the more muscle that you have on your body, the higher your basal metabolic rate is going to be. You'll also see your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, drop down as well. So, I'll notice it on myself. If I eat less, then I will see my steps go down. I will see my resting heart rate go down. It goes way, way down. And when I was doing a lot of fasting, my resting heart rate was averaging in the 40s. And I even saw it go down into the 30s on some nights, which is not really it's not a good thing. Now that I'm eating more and I'm working on healing my metabolism, I'm able to keep my resting heart rate in the high 50s, mid 50s, which I feel like is a lot better than the 40. But your body is so incredibly smart. So this woman I was just talking with, let's see what Vanessa says. Yeah. It's weird that people take this as a bold statement, as though fasting won't slow the metabolism, even though we all agree that eating less calories does this. Yeah. And it's so true, because we're like all pro fasting and autophagy, and we talk about all these benefits of fasting, but we don't talk about the dark side of fasting and what it can do to your metabolism. And fasting has really infiltrated the carnivore community. It's really become this big trendy thing. And what happened to me when I was doing a lot of fasting is I would fast and I would lose weight, but then it would come back on and then some, and it would be really fast weight gain. And I was like, this just doesn't seem normal. And it wasn't, this is the one thing that annoys me about keto and carnivore, is that it's a lot of the gurus and influencers out there act like it's some magical thing, which there is some magic when you switch out of a glucose burning metabolism. Absolutely. You will, and Vanessa was talking about this on her podcast today, you'll burn more energy when you're in a ketone burning metabolism versus a fat burning or a glucose metabolism. You will burn more energy, more calories, but it's not magic. And I think that people do smoke and mirrors, and they say things because they want you to buy products, so they want you to sign up for stuff, and they want you to do their programs. And so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that gets thrown into keto and carnivore. And then I think people really do get confused. And, Kelly Hogan's an amazing example of somebody that went on carnivore. And because she talks about this, I've talked with her about this offline. I talked with her about this online. She had come from losing a lot of weight using keto. She was doing a lot of sugar-free Jell-O. She was doing a lot of sugar-free products, which I think if you can handle those, cool. But she was spending an hour on the elliptical before work, an hour on the elliptical after work. She wanted to have children. She couldn't have children. She had downregulated her sex hormones, hadn't had her period, and was doing all this extra exercise. She was at her goal weight. She was very thin, But she's a classic example of somebody who lost all the weight and then had downregulated her metabolism because the restriction just continued. When she went on the carnivore diet, she gained weight, and she's been very public about this weight gain and how much it freaked her out. And it was like 6 months of her gaining weight. And then boom, she started losing weight. But what she doesn't say so much, but she has said to me, so I know this is a true statement, I'm not just speaking out of context for her, she got to a point where she gained the weight, 6 months carnivore, no fasting, no restricting, just ate lots of meat, was eating a lot of meat. But then she got to a point where her body felt safe. And doing that 6 months of eating probably in a surplus over what she had eating was allowing her metabolism to heal. And so she started naturally eating less, and then the weight came off. And now she's in great shape. And so I see this time and time again, especially with women, that they do, and I'm guilty myself, they do a lot of chronic dieting and a lot of downregulation and a lot of over-exercising and a lot of restricting. They go carnivore and their body is like, oh my God, thank you. Nutrients, food, I'm feeling nourished for the first time. And so they end up eating more and they end up gaining weight. And it's very scary, especially as women. It's like, oh my gosh, we can't gain weight. What is everyone going to think? It's scary. And so you go through that time period of eating more food. Eventually your body is going to feel safe. Eventually your metabolism is going to heal, it's going to recover, and so that you can start eating a reasonable amount of food. You don't have to drop down to 1,000 calories or 800 calories, right? You can eat a reasonable amount of food and still lose weight. So I hope that is helpful. That's, some of the stuff I'm seeing. The other things that I'm seeing is, and I put tests below this video for thyroid, and for sex hormones, so your progesterone being low, and checking in with your blood sugar, because you really want to make sure your blood sugar is regulated. So using a continuous glucose monitor or just a keto mojo, just to check in and make sure that your blood sugar is in a good place. Because if your blood sugar is not balanced, right, you're in a bad spot. It's going to be way, way harder to get your body into that place of safety to move more into that healing zone. And a lot of people have downregulated their thyroid through, and I did this when I tested my thyroid back in January after doing a ton of extended fasting and a ton of fasting period, even doing like regular intermittent fasting, I was overdoing it. I had downregulated my T3. And so a lot of people may have issues with their thyroid and not even be aware of it because they haven't gone to get a test. So I have a thyroid panel linked underneath this video that you guys can go and get that done at home and just see what those numbers look like. Because if your thyroid is not properly functioning, that can account for, and this is not medical advice, I'm not a doctor, nutritionist, any of that stuff. This is just what I've seen anecdotally, as well as people out there, and then different experts, different doctors that I've spoken to here on my channel, that if your thyroid is downregulated, that can account for 300 calories a day. So that's a lot. And over time that'll build up, and over time that'll be weight gain. So make sure your thyroid's doing okay. Make sure your sex hormones are not in the toilet. Yeah. So it's a combination of things. And somebody keeps I'm missing some of these comments, guys, so I'll have to jump back into them. But Mike says that over exercising, fasting, low nutrition diet equals lower metabolism. And I would even say, even if you're doing a carnivore diet, because I did a carnivore diet, but I continued over exercising, over fasting, and I was eating nutrient dense foods, and I still down regulated my metabolism because I was doing all that over exercising, over fasting, even with a nutritious diet. I think you can get away with it a little bit more, but it was like, I was so worried about gaining weight that I just was undernourishing myself. And this is a great comment by Becky. It says, as I always say, trust the process and allow the healing first. When the body is ready to release the excess, it will. Yeah. And I'm loving the stuff that Vanessa's talking about, Ketogenic Girl, about reverse dieting. And I think a lot of people could, and you can do reverse dieting even if you're overweight. Here's the thing. You may need to do that you may need to increase the amount of food that you're eating. If you're eating nutrient-dense food, if you're eating carnivore foods, you may need to do that for a period of 6 months just to get your body to feel safe. And that's the beautiful thing. Once you do that, you're going to be able to reduce the amount that you're eating, but not by a drastic amount. So you're not in this like crazy, 1,000 calorie, 1,200 calorie a day eating plan where you feel deprived and you feel horrible and exhausted all the time in order to just get weight to come off. So, and I know that Vanessa does some programs now. She's got some reverse dieting programs that might be worth looking into. But I would, if you're gaining a lot of weight on carnivore and you're having those issues, I would, number one, just make sure, do some testing, make sure that your blood sugar is stable, make sure that your thyroid is not downregulated, those hormones are not downregulated. If they are, so for me, I haven't had to take a single dose of thyroid medication. I haven't had to take any hormones to get my cycle to come back. I haven't had to take anything. What I had to do was go high fat, right? But I had to get enough food and I had to make my body feel safe. So I ate for 6 months, very, very strictly. Within 30 minutes of waking, I was eating, right? I ate 3 meals a day. I still do eat 3 meals a day because I just like it. I just enjoy it. My body is happier. It keeps my stress lower to eat 3 meals a day. And I'm losing weight right now, eating a lot of calories. I mean, you guys are not my same weight, height, sex. You don't do the same activity I do. So don't take this number and copy. But I will tell you, I have lost 10 pounds since the middle of July, eating 2,000 calories a day, a little above, a little below, pretty much every day. And I had to go back last week and do a maintenance week. So last week, my average, calories, and I hate to use the word calories, it's about energy. But I had to go back last week and average around 2,200, 2,300 quote unquote calories per day because I was dealing with ghrelin. Ghrelin was just like punching me in the face and I was like getting frustrated. And so I did that and I gained 0.0 pounds from going back and eating a week at maintenance. And now I'm back to 2,000 calories a day. And I feel fine. I feel good. I feel nourished. And I'm seeing the scale go down little. So it's a process. And, we always have to ask ourselves, why are we in a rush? What are we in a hurry for? If we're going to a carnivore diet, we need to look at healing the body. It's a way of eating where you can truly heal your body, right? You can heal autoimmune issues. I see people healing all kinds of stuff that doctors have said, this is just a chronic issue. You're going to have this forever. Sorry, here's some pills, right? And I've seen people do carnivore and not have to take the medication. Like I said, I took 0 thyroid medication, 0 progesterone, which is what my doctor wanted to put me on, just by eating a lot more food, eating in a surplus, eating high fat, and eating, enough meals per day. So it is kind of like playing the long game here. Let's see, I'll start taking some questions and let's see. Diane the Carnivore says, reversed hypothyroidism for me. That is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad to hear that. Let's see if I have anything else on here. Oh, and estrogen dominance can be a huge, huge issue for people as well. That can be stopping weight loss. Estrogen dominance is so common. So, and that's something I struggled with, was estrogen dominance. So I've been psychotic for the last 6 months within this journey, making sure that we drink out of glass. We only, store our food in glass containers. We don't use the microwave. I've changed out our detergents, the dish detergent, the laundry detergent. I buy most of my meat from local farm. White Oak Pastures is an amazing regenerative farm. Their link is below this video. So I have a whole video on estrogen dominance and what I have done to reverse that. I've also done, Gloria says, how do we deal with estrogen dominance? Yeah, so I've done some castor oil packs on my liver as well. That's helped tremendously with estrogen dominance. I would work with a functional medicine practitioner if you can, but just switching out all of the products in your house so that you're not using plastic, you're using glass. You keep everything as non-toxic as possible, your laundry detergents, your soap, the makeup that you use. I use the Fancy Farm face tallow all over my body. I don't use regular deodorant. I don't even need deodorant anymore since I've been carnivore. I don't need deodorant. But if you do use deodorant, they have, there's a company called Fatco, Fatco. They have amazing deodorants that are made out of tallow. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of things that you can do to reverse estrogen dominance and be patient. Let's see. Sophia says, when I try out those online macro calculators, they generally recommend about 1,400 calories for my 5'6", 135 pound. Yeah, it definitely sounds low, Sophia. So the other thing that I mentioned earlier that Vanessa was talking about in her podcast is that when you eat carnivore keto, you're in a ketone burning metabolism, you can usually eat around 300 calories a day more just from being out of that glucose burning metabolism. And I think that 1,400 calories a day is super low. I would, it's hard for me to know how much muscle you have on your body, how much activity that you do, but 1,400 calories a day is super low. I'm 5'6", and like I said, I'm losing weight eating around 2,000 calories per day, but I had to work for 6 months first to reverse that down regulation that my metabolism had done from doing so much fasting, doing so much restriction, just chronic over exercising, all of that stuff. So yeah, let's see. Jane Doe says, I put on 7 pounds of water weight in 3 days because of unbalanced electrolytes. Yeah, that can happen as well. Electrolytes are very, very important, and it can cause you to retain water. And if you're doing a keto or carnivore diet, you definitely need to pay attention to those electrolytes. So that can definitely help. Let's see what Jemmy ZC has to say. He says, ketogenic girl, I think he says calculator, it says calendar is awesome. I was stalled and gained for 4 weeks straight. I still stayed with it. I weighed Monday and finally broke past 100 pounds. I'm almost at my goal weight. Wow, just don't give up. That is so awesome, Jimmy. I'm so happy for you and so glad you're on the chat today. Yes, and Ketogenic Girl has a calculator on her website as well. Chan, okay, says, being on the carnivore diet, my mental health has been on a roller coaster. Could this be because of my hormones? It could be, Chan. And here's the other thing. I would be curious to see how much fat that you're eating, because I'm somebody who struggled with mental health, depression, anxiety. I was on my first antidepressant at age 14. I've been off of all medication for the last 2 years, no sleeping medication, no antidepressant, no anti-anxiety, nothing. And the carnivore diet has been helpful. But for me, I have found that if I don't eat a high fat diet, at least 80% of my calories need to come from fat and 20% protein. So that for me is kind of more towards where I'm going right now. I did 90-10 for 6 months, and now I've moved more towards 85-15, some days 80-20. But if my fat gets too low, I start to see depression come back. And I've heard that from a lot of other people too. So I would definitely see how those ratios are going for you. Just see where you're at. And the other thing is that a lot of people give me flack for talking about tracking. Every day I get comments of people like, oh, you shouldn't track if you're doing carnivore. You shouldn't track if you're doing keto. Well, I think that if you're feeling great and you're doing great and you're reaching your goals, don't track. But if you're not, then tracking may be something you want to do. And the way that I track is probably going to be different than some people track. I don't necessarily worry about the fat on my meat. I'm looking at I add a lot of fat to my plate, which is another controversial thing in the carnivore community. Don't add fat, don't do it. I do. And it's made all the difference for me hormonally. I never could get my cycle to regulate when I was just doing a standard carnivore and I wasn't adding fat and I wasn't paying attention to. But I use Carb Manager to track. I know Becky, who's on the chat, she uses MyFitnessPal. But you want to save your favorites, because people are like, you can't know exactly how much fat's on your meat. It's impossible to track that meat. I do agree with that. So I have, if I'm going to eat a ribeye, I have a ribeye that's saved in my Carb Manager app, and I always track with that one. And you know you're not going to get it perfect. You're not going to get this stuff perfect. But if you save it and use it as your favorite every single time, it's going to help you stay more so in a range. So we're not like, oh, you ate 5 more calories this day, you're going to gain weight. No, it's not like that. Our bodies work more so in a range. Our bodies are really, really smart. So I don't think everyone needs to stay to the gram perfect, but having that data is interesting information. And it can also help you understand how much food that you need to eat to stay at your maintenance. Like, figure out what is your maintenance. This is a good question. Did you take on to high fat right away, or was it an adjustment for a while, Sarah? I was lucky that I was pretty much able to just jump right into high fat. I did take HCL, Thorne brand HCL, stomach acid, for the first 6 weeks. And if you're going to do that, start off with half a dose and take it in the middle of your meal. Take it during your meal, halfway through. But I did have to do that because I had loose stools for about 6 weeks. And then I came off the supplement and was totally fine. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Yeah, Sophia says, I weight train 3 days a week and I'm very active. So 1,400 is very low. Yeah, I would try to go to 17, even 1,800 calories. Here's the thing, the more that you can eat, the better. I know that might be a controversial thing to say, but if you can get your calories up super high and stay at maintenance, that's going to be awesome. I mean, that's going to be a great thing for your body, great thing for your metabolism, is to get up there, 2,000 calories, depending on your height, weight, sex, all of that. So don't take it in context. That's the hardest thing about being on the internet, is everyone takes what you say out of context and gets triggered. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm saying try to get your calories up and keep your weight stable for a while. So you don't have to go into this crazy deficit and feel like crap and then risk downregulating your hormones, right? And downregulating your metabolism. Because here's the really scary thing that doesn't get talked about, is that when you're losing lean body mass because of restriction and fasting too much, right, you can also lose bone. And we don't want to lose bone, especially as we get older. That's what happens when people get older. They fall and break a hip and then they're dead. I mean, that's sad. It's very sad when I see older people breaking bones very easily. We want to do everything that we can to preserve lean body mass, to preserve our bones. And our society is so focused on getting skinny and looking a certain way and hitting a certain aesthetic. It's like, at any cost, I will be thin, and it's not healthy. It's not good. Let's see. Can you tell us more about the castor oil for liver treatment? So castor oil packs, and I'm sorry, I know I am missing comments, you guys. So if I miss your comments, just type it right back up in the chat and I will do my best to get to it. And if you really want me to answer your question and not miss it, send me a super chat, because it'll always prioritize those. But castor oil packs for the liver, if you have estrogen dominance, can be super, super helpful. But you can buy a castor oil, like a kit on Amazon. There's like a wool cloth. And then I buy the organic castor oil. You soak the wool cloth in the castor oil. You lay that whole wool cloth across your whole abdominal region, your liver, and you put a hot water bottle or heating pad on there. You lay there for like an hour and then go shower, go clean it off, or take an Epsom salt bath. But women, if you're still in reproductive age, I recommend only doing those castor oil packs so after you finish your bleed and then before ovulation. So in that window of like 7 days there, because if you do it after ovulation, if you're doing it too close to your cycle, it can actually make you get your cycle early. It can cause spotting, because it will also sometimes break down fibroids. So if you have a lot of fibroids, the castor oil packs, you put those over your uterus, it can actually break fibroids down as well. So it's really good for estrogen dominance as well. And yeah, I like castor oil packs. I do them at least a couple days a month, like I said, in between the bleed and ovulation. Let's see. And Mike says bone and hair. I'm assuming, yeah, if you're starting to lose hair, then you need to take a step back, because that's one thing I see a lot of women doing carnivore and keto. They're like, I'm losing hair. Is that normal? No. If you're losing hair, that is a warning sign that you need to change something, that you need to probably eat more. You need to quit fasting. You need to stop and pause, because losing hair is not good. It's not normal. Let's see. Susan says, Queen of Thrones makes an amazing no mess castor oil pack. Yeah, they are messy. I have like a blanket on my couch that I allow myself to use for the castor oil packs. Special shirt, because you got to kind of roll it up, because your shirt will get oil. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. I haven't tried that. And Becky says, I keep a range of fat and protein grams, so I'm not hitting the same grams on a daily basis. Keep the body's metabolism guessing, but it's above 2,000 calories. Yeah. So you're not going to need to eat. And here's the thing, you're not going to need to eat the same amount of quote unquote calories per day, because every day your activity is different. For women, if you're in the last 2 weeks of your cycle, your metabolism is actually higher the 2 weeks before you have your cycle. The 2 weeks before, like when you're bleeding and before ovulation, your metabolism is a little bit slower. So we can't just say eat 2,000 calories a day and that's it. So some days, if I look at, my tracking, what I'm eating, some days I'm eating way less than 2,000, but some days I'm eating way more. Like I had one day, like I mentioned, I had to go for a week at maintenance. One day during maintenance, I ate 2,900, almost 3,000 calories, because I was just really hungry that day. And I was like, I'm in a maintenance week, and I did, like I said, I gained 0 pounds that week from doing a week of maintenance. Let's see. I know you use beef suet. How do you consume it? Do you have any recipes to cook it? Yeah, look on my channel. There's a whole video about fat. I do a lot of rendered beef suet now. I used to eat it raw, but I've been doing it rendered and I really enjoy it. I just keep it out on the counter, scoop it up with a tablespoon and just eat it. It's so good. Can you talk a little bit about gut health and carnivore weight loss? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people experience improved gut health just by going to carnivore. I did. I had a lot of improved gut health just by going to carnivore. But that's where I'm thinking people may need to add in HCl, add in a stomach acid supplement, and that can absolutely affect how efficiently your body works. Let's see. Sorry, I know I'm missing some of these comments. Yeah, Sophia says that's why Dexa scans are the best. I have really high bone density for my age. So yes, and that is a great point. I haven't done a Dexa scan. I know I'm going to do that soon, but Dexa scans are very helpful at telling you bone density, your muscle. They're not 100% accurate, but I think they're better than using a scale to track your progress. 100%. What is the best way to pull out heavy metals like mercury from the body? I think the castor oil packs can be very helpful. Eating a diet like a carnivore diet is a naturally detoxifying diet. And then some people may want to work with a functional medicine practitioner to do other things to pull those out. You could do coffee enemas. I don't do those, but I know some people that have worked with functional medicine doctors to pull those heavy metals out. Let's see, Jane Doe says, what if you're eating till full but total calories are really low? Are you having adverse effects from that? Are you losing too much weight? Are you losing bone, muscle density? I would look into gallbladder, because sometimes your gallbladder has sludge in it, and people don't know they have any gallbladder issues at all until they switch to carnivore, go to a high-fat carnivore diet, and they're like, whoa, I'm just not hungry. I feel nauseous. So I would just make sure that your gallbladder is in good shape, and then maybe add some ox bile salts to that. So that's my answer to that. Have you ever tried brain? No, I haven't. I was actually at White Oak Pastures in December of last year with Dr. Saladino and the Strong Sisters and like a bunch of people, and they were eating brain. It was like this big thing. Everyone was gathering around eating brain, and I was like, I'm going to skip that, but I'm not closed off to it. I just haven't had another opportunity to eat brain. And I haven't bought any, but I'm not closed off to it. It's an awesome source of fat. Some people love it. Some people swear by it. This is a great question. How did you know you had estrogen dominance? So for me, the way that I could tell is that my cycles were very uncomfortable. They were very heavy. I had a lot of cramping. I had a lot of PMS. The 2 weeks before my period started is when my PMS was just off the chain horrible. I was moody. I was depressed. And again, it was very painful, very heavy periods. They lasted 7 days long. The cool thing about all the changes that I have made, my cycles are on time. They're not super heavy. I have no clotting. Sorry for all the men watching this. You're probably like, this is real stuff though. And men can get estrogen dominance as well. It's actually a crazy thing that's happening more and more as men are getting estrogen dominance. But I was just having those super heavy periods, and they were lasting 7 days, sometimes even longer. They were irregular. I also had PCOS, which I no longer have. But those were my main symptoms of estrogen dominance. Very heavy periods, very painful periods, severe PMS with a lot of cramping. Now, the only way I know I'm getting my cycle is I'll have 1 or 2 days where I think the world is going to end. But I don't get cramps, and my periods only last 5 days now, which was the way it was when I was 35. It was 5 days long, starting at, 13 years old, all the way up to age 35. All of a sudden at 35, I think I started having struggles with estrogen dominance. Cycles went to 7 days long and got unbearable. The sad thing is when I went to my doctor, she was like, this is normal. This is part of aging. This is just what's going to happen, and my progesterone would always be low when I tested my progesterone. So you can also test that on days 19, 20, 21. I have a progesterone test linked below the video if that's something you're curious about. Let's see. Tested my ovulation with Kit, ovulation sign. Great tip to test that E-rule. Awesome. Yeah. And I've been diving more into the rabbit hole of testing ovulation. So the ovulation test kit, will tell you when you're having an LH surge, which is the hormone that tells your body to release the egg. The other thing that I started doing was testing my body temperature, so you can confirm that you actually did ovulate, because some women, I didn't know this, will actually have an LH surge and not ovulate if you have PCOS. So confirm also with your basal body temperature to make sure that your temperature goes up and stays up for the remainder of your cycle, so that you're really ovulating. So the basal body temperature is always fun to track as well. And then it's kind of that confirmation, my body is burning more that 2 weeks before your cycle, because you actually see your basal body temperature go up. So I'm going to be bringing more and more people to talk about this kind of stuff on my channel, fertility, hormones, because as women, I don't feel like we're educated enough about this stuff, and we're just given these hormones, and we're given these birth control pills, and we're given this stuff, and it can a lot of time cause more harm than good for women. So I want to bring more and more awareness to women of like how to know if you're ovulating, how to know if you're hormonally healthy, how to know if you're fertile, and ways that you can get off of these birth control pills and hormones that are going to cause more damage, that could be impeding weight loss, that could be causing issues for your metabolism. So thank you, Sophia. Let's see. The best thing of high-fat carnivore, it's the only cure that helps me preventing severe migraine attacks. I'm so happy to hear that. And I hear that from a lot of people. Just going carnivore is not enough to solve some stuff like migraines and some more of these, chronic depression, anxiety. Going to that high fat ratio, I think just has so many therapeutic effects on the body, on the brain. It helps me really heal my hormones and get my fertility back, reverse estrogen dominance, so many amazing things. Rendered suet and carnivore waffle burgers are fire. Interesting. What is the fasting glucose level supposed to be? I've been doing carnivore for 1 month and my weight loss plateaued, so I'm trying to figure out what's wrong. It's going to be different for everybody. I always tell people to work more so in a range, to make sure that, what's optimal for you may not be optimal for me. But for me, I find my optimal fasting glucose is usually low 70s, mid 70s to low 80s. It may be different for you, but that's what I found where I feel my best. Glam says, should I take ox bile with each meal? I would start off with just taking one capsule in the middle of a meal. You want to start off low with these digestive enzymes and with the ox bile. That way your body doesn't become overly dependent on them. So I would just start off with one meal and see if that helps and take it halfway through the meal. That's just my, anecdotal advice from what I've seen. Let's see. Oops. Sorry, I missed a bunch of comments. This is one I meant to click on. I know a functional naturopathic doctor that no longer recommends castor oil packs has been seeing worsening health over using packs. Yeah, so I would definitely be careful with the packs. I go to a health food store, I buy a fresh wool cloth, and then I buy the castor oil in the glass bottle for my castor oil packs. And I don't do it more than 3 days in a row. I actually find if I do it more than 3 days in a row, it will throw my electrolytes off, like way, way off. And it will take me a couple days to recover. So, yeah, I can see where it could cause issues. And then, yeah, if you're putting contaminated cloth or contaminated oil that's been in a plastic bottle, that could definitely cause problems. So I should specify when I do it, I never do it more than 3 days because, again, I'll start to see my electrolytes get thrown off. I always get the glass dark bottle of organic castor oil, and then I use a wool cloth that I get from my local health food store. So don't just go and be willy-nilly about it. Let's see. All right. This is a good question. I'm unable to get a lot of beef fat at the moment. Is it okay to use butter in place of beef fat until I can get more? If you have a good source of like grass-fed butter and you don't have a reaction to it, it's fine. What I found is that if I push the butter like really quickly, really fast, then I would get a headache, which was a histamine intolerance signal. So my body had to build up a tolerance to the butter. I can do lots of butter now, but as long as you don't, if you don't have a reaction to it, then I think it's great. Can estrogen dominance happen after menopause? I've heard that yes, it can. Absolutely. Let's see. Becky says, fasting blood glucose also depends on your metabolic process. So, and as long as you're not symptomatic. Yes. So, the whole, like number has to be specific number. Mine, like I said, my number is going to be different than your number. So symptoms are always more important. Like I am a big proponent of testing, and I've always put tests below my videos so people can kind of check stuff out. But I try to say, go by your symptoms, always try to go back by your symptoms. Very, very important. Yes. Why turning protein into sugar if you are not in fat dominated intake? Yeah, so this is what I've talked about a lot with doing a more high fat version of the carnivore diet. I think if I'm understanding this question correctly. Some people, and I had this experience that when I was eating too much protein, my insulin was spiking and that I was also having gluconeogenesis. So protein does induce an insulin response. There's fat, which usually doesn't induce an insulin response, or if it does, it's a very low one. Then there's protein, and then there's carbohydrate. So there's like this level, right? But some people, a lot of people actually, if you eat too much protein for your body, for your protein threshold. I actually did a video on this earlier this week, so you can kind of figure out what your protein threshold is, that you will see your insulin go up. So it's not like eating cake. It's not going to have the same effect, but gluconeogenesis can cause other issues for the body, including elevated cortisol. So let's see. I know I'm missing some of these comments. Yeah, don't use oil that is older than a few months. Yeah, you have to be careful. Everything, like I said, it's hard for me because I say stuff and then it's like, it's like the game of telephone. be careful with the sources of everything. Like I take a lot of flack for saying that I eat from a regenerative farm, that I'm very careful with my food source. But I do think it's important. Just like if you're going to put castor oil on your liver or on your reproductive organs or on your body, you want to make sure it's from a good source. You don't want to use, just be careful, I think, what you put on your body. Let's see. Can we eat egg yolks every day without getting intolerance? I mean, I do. I've done totally fine eating egg yolks every single day. I eat tons and tons of egg yolks, and I've been fine with it. You just have to see how your individual body works. Let's see. Yes, and Alba says overusing cloths, no matter the material, is the main problem. Wash them, although, yeah, it is a pain in the butt because you're putting that oily cloth into your washing machine or now you don't want to put it in your washing machine, but just getting it clean is a pain. So I just end up, what I do is I just buy new cloths. It's expensive, but if I'm only doing it a couple days a month, then it's worth it to me because it's, again, something I'm putting on my body. We're talking about castor oil packs again. Raw cultured butter is best. Yeah, if you can find a farmer that can provide you with a raw, grass-fed butter, that's going to be your best bet for butter. And I see people reacting less to that butter. How to feel full on lower protein, high fat. You have to give yourself time to get fat adapted. I don't know if Becky is still on here, but yeah, I had to take the time to actually get fat adapted. I wasn't fat adapted when I was doing just a standard carnivore diet. I said this in my video earlier this week, which it kind of pissed off some people. They were like really mad that I had the nerve to say I wasn't fat adapted doing a high protein carnivore diet, but I was not fat adapted. My blood sugar was not stable. So you have to give yourself time, and it can take 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months to really get into pure fat adaptation. So yes, you want to just give yourself time. If you're still really starving, eat a little bit more fat. Use that as your lever, but try to keep that protein at that lower place so that you can really give your body that chance to get fat adapted. Let's see. Thanks for offering this video. My wife and I just started carnivore. She stated she is gaining weight. She is not as hungry and eating only 1,200 to 1,400 calories a day. She's 5'9". Wow. Okay. So, I mean, my biggest thing would be like, what was she? And I talked about this earlier in the video. So you may want to go back once I finish the live stream. This will stay up. The replay will stay up. I'm going to stay on for like another few minutes here, and then I'm going to go because I got to meditate before I pick up my daughter. But I would want to know what she was eating before this, right? I really would want to know like what her dietary habits were like before this diet, because yeah, that's what a lot of this video is about in the very beginning. Let's see. Okay. All right. So I've been eating a standard carnivore diet just for over 2 years, and I'm now experimenting with a high-fat, lower-protein approach to see if it helps with my energy, sleep, and PMS. I'm loving it so far. Yeah, just always go by your symptoms. I think that if you are feeling good, you may not need to switch over. There's a lot of people that have been doing carnivore a standard way for a while, and they're fine, but if you're having trouble with energy, if your hormones are not regulating, if you have a lot of issues, gluconeogenesis for some people may not cause any problems. For me, it was causing a lot of problems. And again, I take a lot of flack for saying that it's an inefficient metabolic process. But yeah, I think that going high fat can be really magic for some people, and you may not need to stay there forever. But yeah, being in gluconeogenesis too much of the time, a lot of people will see elevated cortisol and then downregulation of hormones. Let's see. So I hope that it works out. I'm glad you're loving it. Jimmy says, for some reason, butter raises my blood sugar, rises really high, so I stick with beef and pork. Yeah. So Jimmy, more than likely you're having some kind of a reaction to the butter. It could be a histamine reaction, or you could just be like allergic to it. You could have a dairy issue going on. So I would look into that just to see if that's a problem. But I had that same thing happen to me when I first started to do a higher fat approach. Was my blood sugar was shooting up after I was eating the butter. So I knew it was the butter. So yeah, maybe just stick to the beef and pork fat. Let's see. 7 months carnivore, feeling much better in my gut and mood, but I have ended up gaining weight, inches, and losing hair. I'm getting discouraged, not sure where to go from here. Yeah. So I would, if you're losing hair, I would definitely back up for a little bit and make sure that you're eating, and I know you're gaining weight. I would just back up a minute and just make sure that you're doing what's optimal for you. You're not doing too much fasting. Go back and watch the beginning of the video where I talk more about this, because I do see a lot of women having this experience. Mike says, eating high fat before bed makes me sleep much better. Yeah, it's the same thing for me. And sometimes if I'm really hungry before bed, I will eat a little fat before bed just because I sleep better that way. I think I've never been truly fat adapted due to the high protein intake. Yeah, that was my experience. I thought I was fat adapted, but I was not fat adapted. And my blood sugar was never regulated. It was spiking up 30, 40 points in my sleep, which is gluconeogenesis. And I was having a lot of adverse effects from that. So let's see. I get hypoglycemia. Yeah, and I see a lot of people, that may be eating more protein than their bodies need, getting that hypoglycemia if they're doing a low carb diet. Now, the thing is, people will always cite experts and say there's this doctor and this doctor, they're an expert on this and that. They say you can't eat too much protein. I think I think you can eat a lot of protein if you're in a glucose metabolism, but once you take away the carbohydrate, and you don't have anything else that is bringing your insulin up, if you start eating, a lot of protein, then that's where people can start to see issues. The hardest thing about high fat carnivore is the low volume of food, especially in the big salad culture. Yeah, that was a big adjustment for me. Something I've talked about is that, it's a different feeling of fullness when you switch to high fat, because I was used to eating like 2 pounds of meat per day. So I had a volume feeling of fullness. And then, so it's a different adjustment. You have to finish your eating and then wait a little bit before you get that feeling of fullness. It takes a little time for that to kick in. Becky says, my blood glucose was over 120 when eating high protein, especially the peaks at night and not coming down to baseline. Yeah, I had that same experience. So I'm getting tired of people being like, you can't eat too much protein. It's not a problem. Look at this, expert, and listen to what they have to say. And then they'll send me YouTube videos and send me studies and stuff. And I'm like, I don't really care about what this doctor says or what that study says. I really don't care. When stuff like this is happening, like Becky is saying, I was having this exact same experience, and that did not resolve until I took my protein lower and upped my fat. End of story. So you can at me all day with studies. You can at me all day with this doctor says this, that, and the other, and read his book or whatever. I'm sorry. This was my experience. Becky had the same experience. I know a ton of other people with that same exact experience. How much protein should a 6-year-old, 8-year-old woman have? I mean, that I would say go get a consult with Stephanie Keto Person. I always recommend her. Her information's below, but it's hard to tell someone exactly how much protein they should eat because I'm not qualified to give that sort of advice, but your height, your weight, all of those things come into play there. Let's see. Why is butter causing histamine response in some, such a small amount of casein will do it? Yeah, I'm not really sure why butter causes a histamine response, to be honest with you, or that blood sugar spike. It could be the casein. I have no idea, but I do see it a lot that people will eat butter, and I had that same experience, and I just ate butter by itself and saw my blood sugar going up, after I would eat butter, and a lot of people would complain of that. And I was also having the headache too. So that's how I knew it was histamine. So yeah, it's hard to say why people have that reaction. And I could always do small butter in small amounts and it wouldn't cause a problem for me. But when I started bumping it way up, that's when I started getting those headaches and seeing the blood sugar go up. And then this person says, I've had issues with regular butter too and found that goat products work like a charm. Yeah, I've heard that goat ghee is really good. And goat butter is really good. And some people don't have the same reaction to it as they would just a cow's milk or cow's butter. Let's see. Oops, I didn't mean, my computer just jumped. Let's see. Which is a good glucometer to get? Which is yours? I mean, I've used a Keto Mojo and I think I have it linked below, and I've used that the whole time the last 2 years and it's been great. Again, these devices are not 100% accurate, but having one device and using the same device will give you a reference range. So you want to look more on your trends than anything. So if your, blood glucose is at an 80 and then it goes up to like a 110, a 130, that's a problem. Anything that's like 30 points is a spike. So you want to go more towards those reference ranges. And I also use a continuous glucose monitor. The one that I have below this video is the one I recommend, but you can get one from your doctor if they'll prescribe it for you. But that's another great way to measure your blood sugar. What doneness should we cook our meat to avoid histamines, medium rare? It's not so much about the cooking of your meat. It's going to be your meat source, the meat quality. If they froze that meat right away, you're going to want to rotate your meat. So it's not necessarily about cooking the meat to get rid of the histamines. It's more so about where the meat came from, the meat source. Some people have histamine reaction to pork. So let's see. How do you rotate foods when we don't have that many food? Well, rotate cuts of meat. So don't always just eat ribeye every single day. Maybe go to shoulder roast or do beef belly. You can try eating lamb, try eating goat, try different animals. That's what I recommend with the food rotations. Let's see. How do you use heavy cream on carnivore? What is a good fat to satiate? I don't use heavy cream. I don't do dairy. Dairy and I are not friends. I've tried dairy. It doesn't work for me, so I don't recommend it for people. I use beef suet, beef fat. You can use lamb, goat, any kind of fat is usually really good for adding fat. You can use butter if you tolerate it, but I don't recommend heavy cream or creams. Number one, some people are going to have a reaction to that. And number two, you don't get as satiated eating those dairy products. So this is, how can we ignore those that have been studying protein metabolism for decades? They haven't been studying a protein metabolism with the absence of carbohydrate. That is my point. You can at me all day, but unless they have studied when you're in a ketone metabolism, it is muscle sparing. Your body operates differently than when you're in a carbohydrate burning metabolism. So a lot of these doctors that are talking protein metabolism and the importance of protein are speaking in context. Context is everything, the context of carbohydrates. I can eat, because I've done it before with no problem, I can eat rice and protein together. I can bump my protein up super high and I don't have issues the way that I do when I take the carbohydrates away from my body and eat high protein. That is just the way that my body reacts. And I've talked to thousands of other people that have the same exact experience. So I'm not going to argue with doctors that say this is a certain way. I'm just going to give my experience. And the thing about me sitting here giving my experience is that it's my experience. You can't argue with somebody's experience. I've got Becky saying the same thing. I have literally thousands of messages in my Instagram and comments on my YouTube of people who have the issue of when they take away carbohydrates and they do super high protein, they don't function well. Now, I'm not going to say everybody is going to have the same experience. That's just not a thing. Everyone is not going to have issues when they do high protein and take away the carbohydrate, but there are certain people that are going to have that issue. I'm one of them. And I don't know why that is. I don't have studies to back that up. The only study that I have is giving you guys my experience over the last 2 years. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Add dairy can lose weight more difficult. Yeah, adding dairy in it's not so much that it's like, it's just harder to get satiated on dairy fat, on cream, and on cheese. And some people will report, I'm definitely one of those people that when they eat dairy, it makes them more hungry. So to reach satiation, I think dairy is not going to be your best bet. Let's see. When you lowered your protein and up your fat, did your sleep quality change, or is poor sleep on carnivore due to hormone shifts? So for me, when I upped my fat and lowered my protein, my sleep got better right away. And here's Becky also backing me up saying mine improved along with the quality. Yeah, same thing. You know, when I was eating, and I just talked with Vanessa, ketogenic girl, about this. She was saying that eating that higher amount of protein when you're not eating carbohydrate, that the nitrogen load on your body is also higher. And so some people will find they're waking up more because their body's trying to expel that nitrogen, and it's hard on the liver. And gluconeogenesis, again, is hard on the liver, and it also involves the kidneys. So that can also raise cortisol and cause people to be waking up more at night. So yeah, I slept great on carnivore for the first probably year. I was doing great, sleeping great, and I wasn't worrying. I wasn't tracking my protein. I was eating more protein, and I did fine for that first year. So I don't know that this happens right away for everybody, because that first year I was like 2 pounds of meat per day, feeling great, sleeping great. But then it was like I hit a wall, and all of a sudden, and this could have also been from doing too much fasting, but it was like my hormones tanked, my T3 started tanking, I started having all these problems, and my sleep, that was the big thing, was the sleep. I was like, I am literally waking up all night to go to the bathroom, or just like awake, like wide awake. And it was all the cortisol that my body was producing. So again, lowering the protein, upping the fat for me was key. And so it may not work for everybody, but it definitely worked for me. All right, guys, a couple more questions and I got to go because it's 2:15. Shall I eat more protein to combat hypoglycemia? I mean, personally, that did not help with my hypoglycemia. What helped was eating more frequently and eating more fat. So like I said, I started eating within 30 minutes of waking every morning. I started going to a high fat version of the carnivore diet, and I started eating 3 meals a day. And in between meals, I would also have some meat broth with some fat in it. So I would add ghee or rendered beef suet in between meals, and I would eat fat before bed. So we talk a lot about in the keto and carnivore community, don't snack, only eat 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. That might work really well for some people, but I've seen it do actually the opposite. And what it did for me, eventually my blood sugar got super dysregulated. As I mentioned, when I was wearing that continuous glucose monitor, I was not having regulated blood sugar. I was seeing a lot of spiking, and the spiking a lot of the time was happening in my sleep. So yeah, I would not personally recommend more protein to combat the hypoglycemia. I would recommend more fat. So, all right, guys, any more questions? It's been 1 hour and 3 minutes. I hope this was helpful. And, you know, I try to always tell everyone that I'm just giving my anecdotal experience here on this channel. I'm not giving you medical advice or telling you what you should do. I'm not arguing with experts. I'm not here to do that. I will let the experts and the talking heads continue to do their thing. And I'm going to continue to talk to the people, talk to you guys out there, and, you know, report what I hear back from you guys, what you guys are going through, what you're experiencing. So everything that I'm saying on this channel is just, you know, me listening to people, listening to my body, trying different things, trying different experiments, and reporting back to you guys. So, you know, again, don't take it as medical advice or as word. And I hope that it has helped. Let's see. Oh, Lady Wrench says, I ordered from White Oak today. I didn't use a coupon code from you because I didn't see one. No, I don't have a coupon code, but if you ever do want to help me out and order from White Oak, there is a link below this video. That's my affiliate link. So that would be super helpful for me, but I don't have a coupon code, to be honest with you. Thank you, Becky. I love you too. And you keep doing what you're doing. You guys go follow Becky over on YouTube. She has a great channel. You guys are the best. Jimmy, ZC, stay in there. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you guys so, so very much. And I hope that, again, I hope this stuff helps. And I will do more videos in the future. I've got some stuff planned for next week, so stay tuned. And have a really, really awesome rest of your day. Bye, guys.